All right. So I'm gonna get right into it. I was actually having trouble with Gamma not loading, which is where all my notes are on this. But fortunately, it seems like it loaded perfectly. So I'm gonna go ahead and start sharing my window because we're gonna dive right into just like if you're. Oh, of course, I'm gonna do that. Let me share this window. There we go. All right, no inception for you. I'm sorry. All right, so we're going to dive right into it. Really, this is for anyone who's creating a YouTube channel, considering creating it for their business. So, if you're thinking about creating a YouTube channel for yourself, this isn't going to be particularly helpful unless you're doing it for like a thought leader and a professional aspect. So, just a heads up, want to make sure that I'm helping the right people, talking to the right people, and you're not just kind of like hanging out and then wondering why it's not for you. But if it's a brand channel or you want to create a YouTube channel as a thought leader, which essentially means raising your own professional profile. So if you've got like a portfolio of businesses you're either creating currently or already have, then that would be like a thought leader channel. This is the stuff for you. And basically, I'm just going to go through this and give you all the insights into when you should choose which channel. So really, the question that everyone's facing, if you are making this kind of leap, is should I create a channel that's a thought leader channel that uses my name? So, for example, Steve Kolak would be my thought leader channel, or should I use a brand channel, which is my company's name or my product line's name? So, something like Cedar Web Agency, my agency, would be the name of that channel. And there's also that hybrid that's in between, which is what this channel is. But I'm just going to give you kind of the rundown of those two, and then we can talk about the hybrid later. The reason why you want to think about what you're doing here is YouTube itself has 2.9 billion monthly active users presently. That's the most recent data. There's a threshold of here it says 10 hours. There's also the 7-11-4 rule with just exposure to someone when you're, or exposure to like a brand or a person when you're deciding to buy from them, how much exposure that the average person needs in order to make that leap and basically to have learned about them, gotten to know them, and then trusted them enough to go ahead and make that leap and make a purchase or start working with them as a service. So 10 hours here, and then 82% of the content consumed presently is video compared to other forms, and that's estimated for 2025 on the whole, and it's been increasing year to year. So you want to take advantage of video. You want to start as soon as you can, but you want to do it intelligently because putting all your eggs in the wrong basket still isn't good. And we'll walk through this. And here's a quote that I really like. I've got a couple spread throughout. Business decision makers love online video because it gives them the most amount of information in the shortest amount of time. So I'm sure you've seen all the like different TikTok clips and things like that. Even though we're not talking about what's going to be that kind of like short form video, we're talking about long form video. You can pack so much in there that you get a lot more advantage of it out of it. So let's go ahead and give me 1 second here. I'll be right back. All right. Sorry about that. Want to avoid my dog barking too much. All right. So now we want to talk about understanding your two strategic paths. So each approach offers different advantages, whether you're doing a brand or a thought leader channel, and different risk profiles. Huge thing that you need to factor in is the risk as well. So the choice isn't just about branding, it's a calculated decision based on performance optimization versus strategic safety. I'm going to break that down so we're not just using a bunch of like buzzwords. But when we're talking about a thought leader channel, we're talking about a channel that uses the personal name of the presenter being, you in most cases, if you're like CEO and exec or founder. A single presenter creates consistency and builds that trust and that relationship and that authority. The identity focuses on thoughts, vision, personality, and values. So we're talking about something that's more cohesive than just an overarching like business strategy. We're talking about really getting the personality into that and putting in the values of the individual that are overarching throughout the business. And then the channel personality is directly tied to the leader's persona, which you'll see has its pros and cons in a little bit. And then maximum performance potential through personal trust. So naturally, if you and I are making any buying decision, even for our company, we want to know as much as we can about the product, but we also, at a certain point, we decide that we trust the individuals there more and that everything is aligned. And that's usually where it breaks really, really strongly for the thought leader channel versus the brand channel, because you don't necessarily, let's say you have a problem at a Hertz checkout rent or a Hertz rental. If someone says, "Oh, Hertz will take care of it," you're like, "Okay, maybe." But if they say, "I'm going to take care of it for you," if the person at the front desk says, "I'm going to take care of this for you," you feel a lot more comforted that it's actually going to get resolved because an individual has taken ownership. And so it's that thought process that when we're relating with people, we actually do have a lot more trust in their authority, and that what they're telling us is true, and it's not just some nameless, faceless, or not nameless, but faceless corporation telling us what's going on. Brand channel, meanwhile, use the brand or product name. So it could be the company name, but it also could be a specific product, depending upon how large the company is and how focused this channel is. Multiple presenters to provide flexibility, and that's a huge advantage. You still want to have some consistency, but you can have multiple presenters, so it doesn't lock you into having that one individual. Which again, we'll go over the risks and rewards of that in a little bit. But that's something that's really key here, is just having that flexibility. The identity is centered on the problem, solutions, and education. So even though you still want to put in the brand values, and we have that personality is tied to brand values across marketing, it's not so much the individual's values as the values of the company as represented through the individuals. Now, of course, you still want them to take their own spin on things. If they're more of a humorous delivery, let them go with it. You want to give them a little bit of rein, but essentially they're representing the brand values, and that's always going to be at the forefront. And there's lower risk with perpetual asset structure. All that means is if your presenter leaves, guess what? You've got another, and you can put them in. There's not a channel tied to an individual. So as a company, that's frequently the best way to go. If you are a smaller organization or very heavily founder driven, or you're the founder yourself, for your own profile, a thought leader is often the best way to go if you're comfortable being on camera and you can dedicate that time consistently to it through the years. Now, there's a hybrid option, which I mentioned a little bit ago, and that's sort of what I'm doing here. It's more beneficial for the individual than the organization, but it's balancing the custom tooled machine. So, like a thought leader against the shelf assembly line, which would be more like the brand channel. So you kind of get that happy medium there. It lets the thought leader maintain multiple channels while slightly distancing them from the brand. So, for example, if I want a channel about food and cooking, I can just have that as a channel with my name. But for my agency channel, I can have my name and the brand, and I'm still going to always appear for the on the hybrid option on the channel. But the brand is also associated with it, and it tells you what you're getting and that it's more of a brand channel. So it still has many of the same risks as this thought leader channel, if it's the only YouTube channel, because of course, if I left my company, then the channel that I built, we would have to have a process of more or less offboarding me and onboarding someone else if we were just going to transfer that channel. So when to choose a thought leader channel, again, the catalyst is really if that founder's philosophy is the core differentiating factor. So you'll see and I'm going to mention big names here. You'll see like Alex Hormozy, you'll see Cody Sanchez, you'll see Neil Patel, you'll see a whole host of people who run businesses, but the businesses essentially have taken on the shape of their own philosophies about business and or life. And so those sorts of things, it's really, really good to have that thought leader channel because they're the driving force of the business. Especially in like high ticket consulting, and you'll see this a lot in services or specialized B2B markets where ideas matter more than features. That's going to be the driver. Nonetheless, a performance engine. So if you look at it from the performance engine sort of perspective, personal trust just outperforms more than corporate trust, and we know that. I don't think I need to make too much of an argument to demonstrate that, but the channel is going to thrive on personality, direct experience, and willingness to dissent from industry norms. So generally speaking, if your thought leader, your exec, your founder pretty much agrees with all the standard thinking, then a thought leader channel may not be as powerful because a lot of their content is going to be, yes, this is the way that other businesses do it. We do it that same way. So you do need to take into account the perspective that you're going to bring to the channel and to the business itself. A lot of your market research can help dictate this. And also, this is kind of where you have that feedback loop from video too. You'll get market research by having the channel. So you can start out with maybe a less cohesive philosophy there. But as the founder kind of develops that and figures out what voice resonates and where a little bit of dissent kind of like pulls people in, that's going to be much better. And then also the philosophy closes deals. So in crowded markets with indistinguishable products, or if you're in the AI space, for example, having a really strong product is critical, but there are also a lot of them out there, and there are new ones coming along all the time. So you may want to consider whether having a founder-led or thought leader channel is actually going to give you that level up because it's going to gain more trust, going to gain more resonance with your audience. So the thought leader at that point, again, it's selling the idea that built the product, not just the product, and that reinforces that whole buying decision for anyone who's looking to figure out and kind of like this sea of very similar, what's unique. Now, the inherent risk, as I mentioned, if it's tied to one individual, then departure or scandal, which, Coldplay, we've seen that happen before, means that the revenue stream can disappear overnight. And so you need to figure that out and have a plan associated with that, just in terms of risk management. So calculate this as kind of like your key person risk premium, where it's real and measurable, and it may give you that boost, but it is certainly not as solid a foundation, especially if you're a larger organization and people kind of churn through and your CEO might be there for, 3, 5 years, but not like 20 years. Um, so content requirements, again, got to be opinionated and polarizing or consistently very fresh. Now, polarizing doesn't mean, make people angry, but it means take a strong stance on something that's going to get attention and also something that's carried through your values and your product. So don't just say something a little different to be different. This should carry through, and it should be something that people see consistency, because they do want to see consistency between the thought leader and the product itself. So if you say that, you need to have some, you need to go about your CRM in a completely different fashion than the CRM, and of course you're selling a CRM, that CRM should represent that exact same value structure. And address the broader problem space of your audience, so not just the immediate solution. So you also need to go higher on the funnel. Fence-sitting content just won't build the trust that you really need to make this work. On the other hand, when you choose a brand channel, the catalyst here is going to be kind of like these 4 things. So when product utility is your primary competitive advantage, if really, really what's driving all of your sales is just how good your product is, and that's kind of like speaking for itself. You've got a lot of examples, a lot of case studies, a lot of material that you can dive into, and also you're really clear on your market and how to pull people in. This can be really good. Multi-host channel is critical here. So if you've got like software tools, legacy, or large corporations, that's going to be another indication that you should probably use a brand channel. Now, the focus here, it's going to be a lot of more content focused on the product and the organization itself to some extent. So like transactional content about product tutorials, feature demos, and utility, as well as just solving the problems, but really tied into the product itself, a little bit more so than the philosophy of like a thought leader channel. Interchangeable presenters, again, you're maintaining consistency because you do want to have different presenters over time, while reducing dependency risk to where your audience gets attached to one presenter and then that person leaves because they're the head of marketing and they just get another job or whatever it might be. And again, the protection here is channels survive staff departure because the identity is within the brand, not just a single face, even though you, again, should have some consistency with having 2 or 3 presenters that are regularly on there just to build that trust. The strategy, again, knowledge resource. So massive, massive top of the funnel content as well as middle of the funnel content. And you'll have kind of like, you'll capture free tools, resource libraries. You'll do a lot of like lead magnets, which you'll also do with a thought leader channel, personal channel. Now the content type, again, useful and instructional. So product documentation that educates rather than sells directly, as well as demonstrations, tutorials, practical feature use cases. But you don't want to be so feature driven that you're just driving away audience who are just curious about the solution. So you really want to talk about the solution, make sure it's clear that you understand your customer, their problems, what other things they've tried. So have a good idea of your competitors and why they're still searching, why there might be something that's missing for them. And again, I think I mentioned this earlier, match the brand personality with your presenters, but allow them to add their own personality. So you do want a little bit, if you have 3 presenters, there should be a little bit different flavor to each one. Maybe they cover slightly different topics. If this is useful so far, I had to put this note in here because I always forget. I would love it if you would like it and subscribe or share it with someone. And if it's not useful, then I will do better. So channel goals and content expectations. This is broadly over everything. So no matter which channel you choose, some content needs to repel people. So again, this is kind of like that that filter kind of concept that's going to go through no matter what your marketing is, design content to repel the wrong audience. So low quality or low ticket buyers, quality being they just might not be in the right industry or they're not the right fit, their company wouldn't be at the right stage to work with you or purchase from you. So use a little bit of technical complexity in some videos. You might want to use a little bit more in some niche jargon. You can filter through a bunch of different ways, but uh, you want to keep in mind that there are multiple decision makers sometimes for whether or not they're going to purchase or work with you. So you don't want to have just technical content that speaks to the engineers, but completely misses the CFO who's ultimately going to make the decision. So you want to be kind of like intelligent with how you're creating your content. So it's not just hitting one segment, which ultimately doesn't make the buying decision. You need to build the authority with that segment. So they're also recommending you up. And then you also need to match the other segments. Again, might be your CFO, even though it's a technical product. And this is going to improve sales efficiency. So you want to factor in watch time over views. So watch time is going to be more measured in like your retention, your total watch time overall, as opposed to strictly the number of views, because in some markets, you don't really need more than 1,000 views on a great video to get what you to get your money's worth in terms of new leads and fresh prospects. In other markets, you're going to need a little bit broader, but ultimately, the watch time is going to tell you if you're producing anything that's valuable to them, and that's resonating and pulling them in. So quality engagement is going to beat viral metrics every time. I even got a video coming out basically saying don't go viral. That's not the point of this. And it's compressing your sales cycle. So what you want to do is answer all those questions between awareness and the proposal. So again, that top of the funnel, middle of the funnel, some headed toward the bottom of the funnel, but a lot of it's going to be, especially in a B2B, those two higher up levels that you're going to be answering. So by the time people reach out to you after watching your videos, these qualified leads should be asking, how do we implement? They shouldn't be trying to figure out what you do or how you're different. You should have answered a lot of that. And this is a great quote from Brian Rothstein, an author. Create videos with a distinct purpose. Anticipate your ideal customer's needs and create content to address those needs. Another great quote, because I love quotes. Video marketing is, without a doubt, one of the biggest reasons I've been able to create a multiple six-figure business online. Katie Frayling, I'm probably mispronouncing that. Just another testament to the value that this drives as just an individual. And you have to bear in mind, if you have more resources than just an individual, you can magnify the effects. Now, thought leader channels, I'm going to dive in with some examples here because I think it's really critical to understand what I mean when I talk about these. And I've got a couple of these open right now. So Alex Hormozy for acquisition.com. I'm actually going to go and, we'll go to his channel first. Quick kind of like highlight about him. So he focuses a little bit more on, well, they all focus on a little bit of contrarianism, but I call his the trust catalyst strategy. So extreme transparency and vulnerability, building the massive audience, converting directly into venture capital leads. His top video is how to get so rich you question the meaning of money. So he is targeting very much entrepreneurs and people who are in that space, businesses, and he's got a lot of content. Now, that doesn't mean that that's the content that drives the most business for him, but you can see that his focus is on entrepreneurship business, and he makes that very, very clear with his videos. So if we look at his videos, and his latest videos doing pretty well, 100,000 views, 458,000 views. They're even targeting specific groups of people. And he has all of these kind of keywords that flash to us a certain perspective and a certain philosophy. This replaced me, how to build a business that runs itself. So that's also talking to a key need, win violently. All right, violently stands out there. So that's also being a little bit of that contrarianism in a bit. You can make way more money than you think, challenging views. So we have all these things that are speaking to a philosophy. And thank me in 3 years. So, and these are just the latest, his most popular. Again, very much how to get so rich, you question the meaning. Very much focused again on the same audience. And giving some kind of unique perspective that's very clear. When I click into this video, and these are an hour long, this one's an hour and a half long, I know exactly what I'm going to get. I know who it's for already. I know whether or not it's for me. And acquisition.com is his company. They do have their own brand channel as well, far fewer followers, and the content is different. Cody Sanchez, someone else that we'll talk about in just a minute here, almost 2 million followers, 100 million plus businesses. She says 9-figure businesses. I have no idea if that's close to 10 figures or what it is. But her media company alone, which started, I think, 4 years ago, is worth 5.4 million, brings in $5.4 million annually. So that's just from what's coming in through YouTube. And her stance is contrarian wealth building. So she goes against the grain of the sexy businesses like SaaS modeled businesses, AI, basically anything that you can do remotely from home. And she focuses on what she calls boring businesses and getting your hands dirty. So her top video is businesses that never fail, 6 businesses with amazingly low failure rates. I think a lot of these are more like blue collar sorts of things. So we can click into her videos and see the content that she's making. Her latest, it took me 39 years to realize what I'll tell you in 14 minutes. Don't waste your life. So it's a very strong message. No experience needed, $58,000 a month from tree removal. So again, we're getting into that more blue collar space. You're just a pawn. Again, we're creating some kind of message where it's a little bit of dissent from, the kind of corporate messaging that a lot of people experience. And her business itself, Contrarian Thinking, they even have like a whole manifesto about going the more difficult path. So you can see that she carries that philosophy through. And if people want to work with her, or and she runs our private equity firm, they want to do that because of her and her messaging. Popular videos, again, focus on business, focus on entrepreneurship, and talking about businesses that don't fail, multiple streams of income, different ways to make money. Again, that's a theme with a lot of the people in these channels because they're so large. And now we're going to talk about Iman Gadzhi, who I think still runs consulting.com. He's had a couple different businesses, lots and lots of subscribers, over 100 million plus in digital product sales. And he focuses more on a younger audience. So you saw some of the titles here were focused on like in your 20s and 30s. He's focusing on even in your teens. So his content is about authority. He has built-in authority because he was successful. So he brought that to his content. His top video is, if you're under 25, take these 7 principles to become a millionaire. So again, we're focused, everyone wants wealth. And that's kind of what the theory is, or what the working model is for these people here. But if we look at his videos, latest new way to make money with AI 2026 plus $10,000 a month untapped. So you can see we're focusing again on kind of like that younger demographic a little bit, because we're talking about making AI in 2026 plus $10,000 a month, which is a great sum for someone who's, not making a ton of money right now. But certainly if you're an exec, that's not going to appeal to you. Day in the life of a future billionaire. So a lot of these things are appealing to the what it's like to be rich or how to make money sort of model. If you're trying to get rich and in your 20s or 30s, please watch this. And so you can see, again, similar themes where he's targeting an audience, he's filtering a little bit, and he's got a very clear differentiation here. A little bit less, I think, dissent than you would traditionally see, but his target is a little bit younger audience too. So I don't know that he needs to do as much dissent against the corporate grind, because he's kind of already got that built in. How teenagers can make $1 million, 7 money tips. All right, so note that their top videos are all focused around making money. That's not all they talk about. They talk about business, but they focus on the primary, ultimate like purpose of business, the thing that's a little bit further from the nuts and bolts in a lot of these. And even though they work with other businesses, they seem geared toward individuals and entrepreneurs rather than the other businesses. Again, key person risk is massive here. If any of one of them gets hit by a bus tomorrow, the channel's gone immediately. So the businesses that they've built on top of this are going to have to work through that and solve that problem. Brand channels, there are a couple really good examples that I want to go through as well. These are channels, and you can see the subscriber numbers not nearly as large here, except for one that leans heavily on its founder, which is in the bottom right here. We'll look into. and has one primary presenter really, and their business is around education, and we'll dive into that. But Ahrefs, for example, HubSpot, Figma, and the future. So Ahrefs, they actually are software for SEO, and they've expanded. So they even say SEO and YouTube marketing more and more recently. I think YouTube came in the last year and a half, maybe for them. But you can see on their channel, they still have one main presenter, but you see occasional other, actually, I think it's the same presenter here. But if you scroll far enough down, you can see that there are several different presenters throughout. Even though they have one primary one, it's always the branded channel name. And so it's not something that if this person, for any reason, leaves the company, they're irreplaceable. It's still going to be connected to the channel itself, and the content is a little bit different. So product documentation is content in some way, strictly instructional videos to demonstrate how to solve SEO problems using their tool. But their top video is complete SEO course for beginners, learn to rank #1 in Google. Let me close some of these and that's this one right here, followed by SEO for beginners, followed by digital marketing for beginners. I would start how I would learn digital marketing if I could start over. So it's their audience is much more driven by kind of that middle of the funnel work, where and I'll say top of the funnel and then middle of the funnel. So middle of the funnel in terms of actually solving the problem specifically. Top of the funnel, as in these like complete SEO course for beginners, anything for beginners. I lean more toward calling that top of the funnel because you're pulling in people who don't really know a whole lot at that point. And you can see how well it does. I mean, 3.8 million views. It's from 4 years ago. It's still getting views. This 72 VPH stands for views per hour. So it's still getting 72 views per hour. 1.6 million views 7 years ago. And you can see a lot of these have 1 million views or more. Now, let's talk about HubSpot. They have 2 channels, but I picked one specifically. Oh, and sorry, Ahrefs, 100 million plus in annual revenue, and they're all bootstrapped. They didn't raise funding. HubSpot has 2 channels that I found, and they sponsor several others, but I'm just talking about one here, which is the HubSpot marketing channel. 2.2 billion plus in annual revenue. They're a publicly traded company, or they're a public company. Topic domination. So interchangeable hosts for every relevant business topic, which for them is really, really broad because they have so many topics and so many services and products that they provide, maximizing search traffic while minimizing key person risk. Top video, what is HubSpot CMS, which is really interesting because that speaks to their own awareness level. And it's from 5 years ago, 2.6 million views. And then you can see some of their top videos are very, very generic here. However, you want to factor in that this is not necessarily going to pull people, and these are 3-minute videos, 30 seconds, 2-minute videos. These aren't really the informing the audience and educating them and pulling them in. Whereas if you look at their latest, they have 12, 15, they're in that really 12 to 20 minute range with a lot of these. And it's very specific in solving specific problems, something that you might Google. Now, because YouTube is the world's #2 search engine, something like how to master LinkedIn ads for your business is pretty good if someone's searching on how to do LinkedIn ads, or are LinkedIn ads good? How to do LinkedIn ads. It wouldn't really come up for are LinkedIn ads good. So how to master LinkedIn ads for your business. Copywriting for business. Again, like we already are filtering within here, mastering this for business. Instagram business profile setup. The latest LinkedIn strategies that generated 2 million. All right. Doesn't say business in there, but it's pretty clear with lead generation. How to build a customer persona for your business. So you have all of these focuses and all of these filters that are really getting after solving specific problems that a lot of people have, and then pulling those people into HubSpot's place, or in HubSpot's ecosystem. Now, Figma, another really good example, 707,000 plus subscribers, multi-billion-dollar valuation. Now, Figma, this is another interesting one. They gained a lot of traction throughout the software engineering and dev workspace because a lot of designers used it. And I was a front-end engineer, so I'm pretty familiar with it from my time there. But they do a lot of product announcements, feature tutorials, and design process videos that prioritize community health and user adoption. So their top video is what is Figma from 2019. 1.8 million views. It's all of 90 seconds, 95 seconds. So a lot of this is just what I'm going to call geared toward the decision maker, the buying decision kind of suite, and it's telling you what Figma is. And now we're going into tutorials that are for designers or for teams that aren't sure if they want to use it or not. And it's good substantive content, very specific to using their tool. Meanwhile, the latest, we're getting into integrating their tools with different kinds of workflows. So Figma Plus developer workflows, and that's brand new, 7 hours ago, already has 2,000 views, not too bad. And specific to that's a 30-minute video. Then they have seems like an aberration for some of them because it's how teams in India design for diversity and scale with Figma, probably reaching out to their international audience, honestly. Intro to Figma sites, so another like product thing, we're about 11 minutes. And then we have an hour where they're doing a keynote, and that's got 28,000 views. And it looks like more of a, maybe not a product launch, but a feature launch. So you've got a lot of content that's really more explaining their business and explaining how to use it again, with those tutorials mixed in. In the future, so this is the kind of like aberration that I wanted to talk about. This channel has 2.73 million plus subscribers, and the owner of the agency built it to an $80 million agency. He also has a multi-million-dollar education platform. The authority here is through philosophy. So he challenges industry norms in design in particular. And the top video is Pricing Design Work and Creativity, the Guide. So this is really good resource, and this leads into the education platform for designers, for branding, for the creative community, especially freelancers or smaller agencies. Now, the main person who does all their videos, I haven't seen one without without the individual, Chris Doe, I think is his last name. He isn't, again, the channel isn't named after him, so he's not building his professional or his like thought leadership in that way, but it's very, very closely tied here. And all of the content is it's his agency. So all the content is, as far as I know, made by him, and he's the speaker and he is the presenter. But in theory, if he were to go away tomorrow, someone else could step up and operate the channel. But you see that he's actually brought in that thought leadership. And I say you see that, but you'll have to check out his channel to see that. He brings in that thought leadership, and then you can see like even the title here, I messed up, the truth about niching down. I risked everything to build a brand I believed in. This is more of a podcast style. One question that turns boring stories into gold, get them hooked. So you've got some of this a little bit less, a little bit harder to disagree with for some of this, except for I messed up, the truth about niching down. That's going to pique someone's interest because we're all here. You got to niche down. Why you need controversy when building an online brand. Sounds like something we're kind of talking about. Controversy is probably an extra strong word here for having a contrasting opinion. And you see this content an hour long for his latest, an hour long, about 15 minutes long for the next two, and then 45 minutes long for another podcast style. But the most popular content, Pricing Design Work and Creativity, the Guide, is basically, if you kind of watch this preview, a little mini lecture on pricing. And he's got some really good material there, but it's clear who the audience is. 4.5 million views. So our audience is designers. What is branding? 4-minute crash course. Really short video, 2.5 million views. But these broader topics that are of great interest to his audience and potentially going to pull in from higher up on the funnel. All right. Let's see how we're doing so far. So how do you choose? The TLDR of it all. If you're a small company with a strong CEO or founder, and you already have the bus problem, which means that if that person were hit by a bus tomorrow, things would go sideways because you don't really have anything in place. If you're a solar founder, or if this venture is for personal wealth, like building an entire portfolio of businesses, then do a thought leader channel. Ultimately, it's going to benefit you more as the individual and has the potential to benefit the company more in the long run as well. But you need to be aware of the risks. So if you're larger or your main character or your main character for the brand, so like your exec, CEO, founder, doesn't want to be tied to making videos long term, or they just don't want to be tied to it at all, choose the brand angle. Both can be very, very lucrative for your business. That is just about everything. That actually wasn't as long as last time. I think I went a little bit quicker, which is good. So next week live, I'm going to talk about browse videos versus search videos. And really, there are two kind of ways that people find your content. Either it just appears in their feed or in a suggested video, or they're searching for something and your video pops up. So we're going to talk about the differences between those two videos, how to determine your content strategy, what they are, all that fun stuff. So the role each plays in your strategy and content roadmap, the ICPs that these target, how they target different intents, which is most likely to go viral for you first, and why that may or may not be a good thing, especially when you're early on, and what's going to build the most traction and authority for you in the long run. Let me see if we got any questions. No, I think that answers everything. All right. Thanks for hopping on. Really appreciate it and hope you had a good time.